It was our 4th year of marriage. On the night of the company's annual gala, my wife, Nicole Morgan, walked in pregnant. And she didn't come alone. Right behind her was a man, her assistant, Drew Hastings, also known as her longtime true love. The crowd turned to watch me, like they were waiting for a good show. Their eyes were full of mockery. After all, Nicole had been overseas for the past 2 years. And now here she was, back in town, carrying another man's child. Even my in-laws just stood there in silence, staring at me. Nicole walked up and announced to the whole room, "Ryan, I'm pregnant with Drew's baby. But I'm still your wife, and Drew's child will take care of you when you're old. I'm only having this one child ever." Then she added, cold and proud, "You should be grateful. Let's be real, if it weren't for my family, you would have starved to death a long time ago, Ryan. You're just a live-in son-in-law." I looked at this whole twisted family, then let out a small laugh. "In that case, say goodbye to the Morgan family business." Drew stepped forward, sneering, "You've got to be joking. Everything you have came from the Morgans. You really think you can take us down?" Nicole burst into laughter. "I was going to let you keep some dignity. My parents actually said you were capable, that we should let you run the company and work yourself to death for our family. But I think Drew can do a much better job than you ever could. So today, Ryan, I'm divorcing you. And you can pack your things and get out of the company." Her eyes were icy as she looked at me. "You signed a contract when you married into our family. If I want a divorce, you have to accept it, no questions asked. And you walk away with nothing." I turned to look at her parents. They kept their heads down, silent, but the guilt in their expression said it all. The rest of the company stood around whispering, watching the drama unfold. Not one person stepped in to defend me. They were still waiting for the punchline. I knew what they all thought of me. I was just the kept husband, someone they never respected. The only reason I got to be CEO was because I made the company money. Since marrying into the Morgans, I had given everything to their business, transforming it from a small operation into a publicly traded company. Nicole had volunteered to expand the business overseas. And now she was back, pregnant by another man. I looked at her, at Drew, standing proudly behind her. I chuckled. "Fine, you want a divorce? Let's do it." The second I said that, Drew grinned and pulled Nicole closer. "Don't worry, Nicole. I'll make sure everything runs smoothly from now on." She gave him a sweet smile, one I'd never seen her give me. Even after everything I gave up for her, even after marrying into her family, I never got her real love. Nicole held out a document. "I've already drawn up the divorce agreement. Sign it and we'll get the papers finalized tomorrow." I glanced at it and gave a slight smile. It was simple. I leave with nothing. Not even a toothbrush. I looked at her one more time. After years of loyalty, this was how it ended. Without hesitation, I signed. "I'll meet you at the courthouse tomorrow morning." After that, I walked out of the gala. Finally, "That guy's out of here." I heard someone laugh behind me. "Ugh, remember how he used to boss us around all the time? We always got stuck with the grunt work." Well, glad that's over. Miss Morgan and her family are taking over the company now. Things are finally looking up. Yeah, I heard they're giving out bonuses and all kinds of perks. Unlike that guy, always tightening the screws on us. He had it coming. Total control freak. No wonder Miss Morgan dumped him. I let out a bitter laugh as I passed by. They had no idea. All those perks they were raving about? I was the one who fought tooth and nail to make them happen. If it hadn't been for me, they'd still be stuck under the Morgans' penny-pinching ways. Nicole's parents tight-fisted to the core. They never wanted to spend a dime on the staff. I had to make promises, argue my case, even swear I could get the company listed just to get the bare minimum approved. But I guess that just made them hate me more. So when Nicole said she wanted a divorce and brought Drew back with her, of course her parents were all for it. In their minds, the company was stable now. What could go wrong? They didn't need me anymore, so they were happy to cut me loose. Outside, I pulled out my phone and made a call. "It's happening. I'm divorced," I said flatly. "I told you it would end this way," the voice on the other end replied. "You knew about them years ago. Now that you're no longer tied to them, come home. We've spent years setting traps for the Morgans. And now that you're not one of them anymore, we can finally start the takedown." "I'm ready, Dad," I said. "I'm coming home." Nicole had no idea. What Nicole didn't know was that years ago, my birth parents found me. They wanted me to come back and take over the family business. But I turned them down. I was still in love with her. They left disappointed. Then they came back with proof, photos of Nicole and Drew overseas, all over each other. So yeah, I knew. For 2 whole years, I knew. But I still held out hope. I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd come back to me. I guess love makes you stupid. But I also knew what kind of people the Morgans were. That's when I started planning. If they ever turned on me, I'd be ready. Now it was time. Now, I'm going back to where I belong. My parents were thrilled. Dad even offered to pick me up himself, but I said no. I told him I'd handle the Morgans myself. "Alright," he said. "Come home, Ryan. You've been away from us for too long. There was never any reason for you to be someone's lapdog. When you come home, I'll find you a good wife, someone worthy of you." The next morning, I waited at the courthouse. Nicole showed up holding Drew's hand. She sneered as soon as she saw me. "Ryan, look at you. Do you honestly think you can compare to Drew? He's younger and better than you in every way. You know, the moment Drew took over the company yesterday, he landed a huge deal. Things are only going up from here." She scoffed. "Seriously, you thought the company couldn't survive without you?" I listened to Nicole's sneer and gave a faint smile. After all, I knew exactly what deal she was talking about. It was one I had been working on before I left. I always had a bad feeling about it. The client's deadline was insanely tight, so tight that there was no way we could produce the volume they needed in time. If anything went wrong, the penalties would be astronomical. Any company with common sense would never take on that deal. But I hadn't expected Drew and Nicole to be reckless enough to go through with it. Standing there, watching the two of them gloat, I couldn't help but laugh. They had no idea that if this went south, it could drag the entire Morgan group down with it. But honestly, that had nothing to do with me anymore. I signed the divorce papers, and right after that, I watched Nicole pull Drew to the side and walk straight into the county office. 10 minutes later, they walked out holding a marriage certificate. "I'm Mrs. Hastings now." Waving it in my face, Nicole couldn't wait to rub it in. "As for you? Just a washed-up loser. Good luck finding a real job." I didn't respond. I just turned and walked out of the building. Behind me, Drew called out with a smug grin, "Hey, Mr. Anderson, I have a message from all the staff you used to work with. They said, good riddance. According to them, you were all bark and no bite, and the company's better off without you." I glanced back at him. He looked so damn proud of himself. I just smiled. Got it. There was no point getting angry. I was strangely calm. The moment I stepped outside, a sleek luxury car pulled up at the curb. Out stepped my father's assistant, Lauren Scott. I'd met her a few times before. This time, my father had clearly sent her to pick me up. She gave me a polite nod and opened the door. "Mr. Anderson, your father is waiting for you." "Thanks, Lauren," I said with a nod and got into the car. But just as we were about to drive off, Nicole's voice rang out from behind. "Ryan, wow, you've really learned how to put on a show. You think renting a luxury car and hiring some woman to play along is gonna make me regret dumping you?" I turned to look at her. She was clinging to Drew's arm, smirking at me like she was the one who had won. "Let's be real here. You're an orphan, Ryan. You've got no money. You spent all those years working your ass off for my family's business and ended up with nothing. No way someone like you could afford a car like that." I just smiled. I didn't say a word. I didn't have the energy to argue with Nicole anymore. When I didn't respond and simply got in the car, her smile faded and her voice sharpened. "Let me guess, you spent every last dime you had on this rental, didn't you? I can't wait to see what happens to you now. If you end up starving on the streets, don't come crawling to us." I turned my head and looked at her. She still had that arrogant expression, like she thought she had everything figured out. And I just smiled. "Don't worry, I won't. But if you two run into trouble later on, don't come knocking on my door either."